Yeah, so the ascension, of the body and the spirit, where it attains, lifting out of the spirit, like having ego-death experiences, breaking through, is pretty interesting because it's embedded a lot in our culture, at least, Western culture, and it, sort of like these ideas and these foundations is something that has been underground for quite a while, too. So as me, who's someone who's experienced these sort of states, a few times, the idea of like ascension and ego death is fun because it's malleable. There's different levels to ego death. And in my life, I feel as though the idea that I've experienced ego death, I feel like I've attained that a few times, but each time it happens, the quality is different. And, it'd be really interesting to see if someone could compile sort of those narratives of people of how they experience ascension and ego death and unity. Because, the first time I experienced it, I was like, oh man, that was complete. Yeah, that was a complete ego death experience. I was unified and I did da. But then the second time I was in there, I was like, whoa, I thought that other one was permanent, but this one lasted even longer. I was sort of in this state, this void state, for a much more longer, infinite amount of time, which is, funny. Language is always funny because if it's truly infinite, why am I talking right now, right? Or if you really do experience infinity, why do you come out of infinity? So, it's kind of, I guess that's the question of these ideas of peak experiences. Can peak experiences actually change you, or can you maintain them as you develop your consciousness? So going into an ego death experience, there usually is a break of consciousness, right? Because that's why usually, I guess, ego death is also accompanied with rebirth. Kind of the way I chart it is ego death is when there's a break and you do not remember crossing over. There's a stop. So it becomes almost like you're watching or reliving the idea of the Big Bang or something. There's sort of a unified state that is only aware of awareness, and then when it becomes aware of its own awareness, it starts to build a reality after that. And usually I think with people is like, okay, yeah, that happens, and then these ideas, at least for me, is like the ideas of that this reality was aware of its own reality, that reality could exist, or consciousness could exist, and therefore it developed a separateness from that. And from there, not only ideas of that idea, but it is a true idea. So the idea that truth was sort of the next phase coming out of that there not only could be something, there is something. And the next phase for me was not only could there be an awareness outside of that awareness, I was that awareness. And then eventually there was an idea there was a planet or a cosmos, and somewhere on this planet and cosmos, I guess that identity could be existing, and that identity, yes, that identity is me. And so eventually time came up, and then the personal incarnation, and then the history, and then oh wait, I'm sitting here and I'm, in the space. Yeah, okay, I've completely come out of my body. And then that's always sort of the fun, because when you're immediately in there and you can kind of understand those jumps, you can make a very clear pathway. But as time goes on, farther and farther away, you're embedded with that. It definitely changes you on the cellular level, but that access becomes less and less. You're like, well, for me, one of the big takeaways is I know the world is illusion. And before I had that experience, I thought the world was an illusion was a really nice metaphor, or was a really nice, way to kind of talk about life. But after that experience, I was like, wait, no, that is probably one of the deepest truths. This is truly an illusion. Like there's nothing deeper or real about that. So for me, that's sort of like the one that I can really hang on to. There's many layers that are still foggy about like, well, I don't know how the universe was created, but I know there's this sort of like awareness of itself within there, but just the simple, the simple truths, I think, kind of pull you back. You can't directly talk about it because it's dealing with paradoxes, because you're dealing with unity, and the unity deals with two poles that are connected. So language is definitely works to solidify.